So here we are on the tail end of one of my games, and I chose to play King E5 here. It just made sense to me going after the isolated pawn. Let's just get rid of it. And I think it was a wasted tempo, actually. Knight E3 was played, King takes E6, and now Knight G8. Now, when he played Knight G8, I thought about it for a minute. And I was wondering, what is he up to? And then it started to dawn on me, maybe he's thinking about sacrificing that knight and grabbing a couple pawns for it. Because if he could force me into an endgame with bishop and knight, it's going to be difficult to checkmate him. So here I played bishop to d2, thinking that this would help support the pawns. Knight f1, and then I realized this isn't really as good as I thought, because now it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks here. I'm going to lose all three of those pawns. Fortunately for me, I practiced bishop and knight endings. In fact, I used to teach it as a coach. So I played bishop f4 here, knight takes h6, g takes h6, knight takes h2, bishop takes h2, king takes h6, king f5, covering the escape of the black king along the light squares and, well, along the g file, let's say. So here, if he heads back to g7, he's pretty much going where I want him to. He chose to play king h5 though. He's running from the dark corner. Bishop g6, cut him off. Bishop h6, and now the knight comes in to e8. And so between the king and the knight, we've got the g file covered. The bishop has the tail end of the h file covered, and we've got him on the edge of the board. So for a bishop and knight ending, the bulk of the work here is done. He's so close to that dark square corner. We just have to nudge him a few more squares, get our knight and bishop into position, and then we can force mate. Here he played king h7, but let's say he goes back the other way, just for example. King h5, knight g7 check, king h6, king f6, king h7, knight f5, and you see he's covering the h file here, forcing him into the corner or along the 8th rank. We have king h8 was played, king g6, preventing him from coming back to h7. And then also we're covering the g7 square here in the f7. We need to cover g7 so the knight can move away and get into a better position. We're going to want, in fact, the knight's actually in position. I take that back. Our knight's next move will probably be to h6, delivering check on g8, and then the bishop, sometime between the ending and now, is going to be moving over to d6, covering the f8 square. And let me draw it out for you. The idea, the bishop has to come up here. The knight's going to be going there. And the idea is that the bishop would be covering f8, and the knight is going to be covering g8 with check, by the way. It has to do with the check, forcing the black king into the corner, and then the bishop's able to come back, providing mate from e5. So that's the idea. That's what we're up to here. So he played king g8 from here. Let's go there. King g8. bishop d6, king h8, and bishop c5. So why bishop c5? Well, remember I said the knight needs to go to h6, delivering check on g8. So we have to throw a tempo in order for that to happen. Timing is important. King to g8, knight h6 check, king h8, and then bishop d4 mate. All right, so that's one idea, one scenario. So let's go back to our previous position where black had, where we had just played knight e8. And the black king is forced to stay along the h file. So instead of coming back to h5, this time let's look at king to h7. Bishop f4, forcing him to the corner, or at least up to the 8th rank, so we're getting a better position here. King g8, and now king f6. King f8, knight c7. So we see why f6 was so important, because we're covering e7 here. King g8, and then the knight comes back to e6, and now the knight is covering the dark square f8, forcing the black king either to the h file, h7 or h8. All right, so he goes to h7. King f7, king h8, and now bishop e3. We've seen this before, throwing a tempo, allowing the black king to move to one of the light-colored squares so that the knight can deliver a check, forcing him into the corner, and then the bishop will give mate. So see if you can guess what we're going to do here after king h7. What's the follow-up? The knight moves where? Knight f8 check. And because of the location of our bishop, let's draw a few red lines here. Got a king guarding all those important squares on the g file. The bishop's guarding the flight square on the h file, h6. And the knight is providing check. I like to use a round arrow for knights. And so the black king has only one square, and that's king h8. It's the only place. And so now, if we don't provide a check on the very next move, this is a stalemate. So we have to. Bishop to where? To d4. Checkmate. Game over. Aren't you glad you studied? This will come in real handy. Just imagine you're playing in the World Open and you end up in a one game with a few extra pawns. Your opponent sacrifices a couple of pieces to get rid of those pawns, and you're stuck with a bishop and knight. If you don't know how to do this, it could cost you thousands of dollars. So take the time and learn it. It's important.